is unable to attend this morning, but she will be here at the next board meeting, so I will hold that particular item until the next board meeting to welcome her to Hans County, the new superintendent of Hans County Public Schools. From that, we'll go directly to
the new superintendent. Now, she started in January.
yes.
Now, the issue of we had the state here, and we talked about that in public schools. It was two county schools that if they fail the state test this year, would be the third time failing. And the possibility then would be the state taking over all the county schools. Could we get her to, when she comes, to kind of talk to us about that? I know she won't have a lot of time to try to compare those two southern schools, but I think the issue is turned to whether one school fails to take over that one school versus take over the whole school district. And I think the young lady from the state ticket is the whole district.
Okay, I will make sure that she's able to address that issue when she comes to the next board meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We'll now go to the Honorable Mr. Dale McQuaid, District 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure if she's here or not, Mrs. Allison Washington. We have a request from their office, the Mississippi Development Authority Division of Tourism, requesting authorization to place on county right-of-way a marker, Mississippi Blues Trail marker for the late Mr. Charlie Patton. And so I'm asking of this board to authorize and give permission for them to do that as part of the Blues Trail marker.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay, continue, please.
Number two, we're going to still waiting on some information. We are reviewing contracts currently held by the county and working with the board attorneys. We're going to hold off on number two to the next meeting. Third item I have is appointment to the Hinds County Human Resource Agency of Mrs. Nikki Parker, who is here. I want to place her on that board to represent District 2.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Is that a replacement of a previous person or someone whose term expired?
Replacement previous.
Okay, continue, please.
For the record, can you get that information to us so we can include it in the minutes?
Sure. Continue.
That's all I have.
Okay, we'll now go to the Honorable Peggy Calhoun, District 3.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I discuss my item that's listed on the agenda, I have a resolution for ratification, and that is a resolution to Mrs. Flora Marie Calhoun, who expired, and a resolution was presented on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, honoring her life as one whose professional, personal endeavors and community service were beneficial to the community and also inspiration to her colleagues, families, and friends. So I move that we place this resolution in our minutes.
It's been moved. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay,
Thank you.
continue, please.
Okay, the next item I have is the discussion of the E911 budget, and I will propose an RFP process for purchasing of a new system. The E911 budget has over the years been dwindling in regards to funds, and because of the decrease, and it's because of a decrease in the number of landlines. I have passed out information to you regarding the 5-year projections of our E911 funds. You will see that the first 2 pages are projections based upon current expenditures with no changes in services or contracts that we have. We will go into a negative in August debt payment is due. And actually, we will not have enough cash on hand to pay the note in full. And you will see that this trend develops all the way to the year of June 2018. By June 2018, if nothing changes, then we will have a deficit occurring of over almost $2 million. To compound the situation of not having sufficient or adequate funds to pay our debt and provide our E911 services, we have an aging communication system. The system has practically reached its youthfulness. This morning, I'm requesting that the board look at advertising for a request for proposal. We're going to have to address these two issues. We have to start now planning. As a matter of fact, we should have planned for this day back in 2011 when who's now deceased, the EOC Director Jimmy Lewis, informed this board that we were headed in a bad way because of the dwindling funds and the decrease in the number of landlines to support an adequate budget for our E911 department. Back in 2012, we also were informed by then the EOC Director, Martin Young, that we were headed in a bad way, in the wrong direction with, again, the fact that we would not have sufficient funds to operate our E911 department. And again, here we sit in 2013. Now, two of the present board members were not here back in, so I'm going to take some of that burden off of them. They were not here back in 2011, and they were not here in 2012. It was a previous board that I am referring to. However, I've always been a proponent of addressing these issues. But to this day, we have not addressed the issue of providing for sufficient funding and, of course, looking at purchasing a new system. I'm hoping that if we purchase a new system, that we can look at plans submitted by the companies that will help us to address or provide us with some type of financial incentive that is affordable to this county in purchasing a new system. Over the years, we have maintained the system at approximately $730-some thousand, which almost, that's me, and me again, I'm not the expert, but almost enough to have purchased a new system. Joey Perkins is here, our interim EOC director, EOC director is here this morning, and I asked him to look at the situation and come with some recommendations. Mr. Perkins, can you come forward, please, with your recommendations?
Good morning.
I asked you to provide us with some recommendations that perhaps can help, not help eliminate the problem, but some means for which, or good directions in which we can go to help immediately address some of our concerns.
In looking at the 911 budget, a lot of your expenditures are recurring. Energy bills, things that you need to support the radio system that you pay for every month. In that, some of that are contracts, there are two contracts. One of them is a site maintenance contract for $122,000 and some change. My recommendation on that would be to cancel that contract. That's something that the EOC staff could perform. There is one duty in there, an issue with the tower lights, that I would have a question about or not be comfortable with. But everything else, the EOC staff, the department could, in my opinion, handle with current employees. It would still cost some money to maintain generators, air conditioners, things of that nature, but would be out of reduced space.
I wish I could sit here and say what savings would be realized, but there aren't going to be any savings because we're going to be running a deficit. Even with the recommendation that you're making right now, we still will go into a negative.
Yes, ma'am.
When the annual debt payment is due. So there are no savings realized, and here again, we're still operating in an emergency mode.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any other recommendations?
Another recommendation on the other maintenance contract would be for the board to create a radio system manager position within the county. Have that person report to the EOC director. Would be a salaried employee to do the job that the contractor's doing. I would say at 10 to 20% of the cost.
And how much would that position? What is the estimated amount for that?
I'm going to say 35 to 45,000, but it may be slightly higher than that. Maybe slightly less. Just probably depends on the qualifications of the person. That would be higher. They would have to have, vehicles, some equipment, things like that. There would still be some costs, but we could do it in-house, I believe, for 10 to 20% of what we're spending now.
Okay. Is that it? Those are the two recommendations.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to put this item back on the agenda for our next board's meeting with the with the expectation that the board will move forward in making a decision as to what we must do.
Okay.
As I said, we're going each month, starting with August, we will create deficits. There's no relief in sight. In a couple of periods, when you look at some of the months, we may have a little relief, but no real relief. And I say a little relief, still, the little relief that we have will not put a dent in the ongoing deficit that's being created.
Right. It's still going to run out of money either way.
Right. We must take action. We have to do something. And hopefully in our next board meeting, after the board members have had the opportunity, the new board members and other board members have had the opportunity to discuss with you in depth this crisis situation, then perhaps we can take action. But meanwhile, this morning, I would like to make a motion to move forward in advertising for request for an RFP for the purchase of a new system. At least in doing so, we can look at the various plans that will be offered to Hines County, as well as know what it will cost to purchase a new system and look at our financial options. So my motion is to advertise for an RFP for the purchase of an E911 system.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Discussion, Supervisor Stokes and Supervisor Greer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wasn't here when that was when the issue came up, and I heard it in 12. I might be country old fashioned. I believe we need to pay off the system that we have. Once you pay that off, then you look at the new system. And I've heard people say, well, this system, you never pay it off, and this and that and that and this. I understand technology. And as soon as we purchase a new system, it's going to be out. I believe the right step is what the old folks have done year after year after year. They pay their debts off. Once you pay the debt off, then you look at a new system. But you go get a new system, you transfer some debt, you're going to keep paying over and over again. So I don't know. Thank you.
Supervisor Greer.
Joey, what is the monthly cost? You indicated that this person would be a fraction of the cost. Is this the $67,000 a month that we're paying? That you're saying this person would be responsible?
$30,000 a quarter.
Right, the first recommendation I had was the $30,511 a quarter for site maintenance.
Right.
The other one was the radio system maintenance contract.
Which is how much a month?
It's $70,429 a month, and that would be where the employee would replace that.
Okay, I have one other
Go ahead, continue.
Carmen, is this the fund that the state auditor was looking into? Is this the?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any results from their visit?
I haven't heard any more. Haven't heard any more from them. They haven't returned.
Would you mind following up with them to?
Sure. They came one day and was looking to return prior to the holiday, and we haven't heard back. But we will follow up.
I'd like to know what the results are.
Supervisor Calhoun and Supervisor McQuaid.
Yes, I would like to state that we will not have sufficient funds, not enough cash on hand to pay that note in full. That's how serious this situation is. So we're not going to be able to pay off any kind of note. And that's why I'm asking this board to then move forward in advertising for RFQ. And hopefully we can receive a financial plan that is affordable and assisting this county to meet its emergency communication needs.
Okay, Supervisor McQuaid, then Supervisor Stokes.
It would have been great if the constables were still here, as well as a lot of representatives from the Sheriff Department, Police Department, people who understand and realize emergency equipment and the operations of communication equipment. That becomes their lifeline, and they risk their lives and put their lives in jeopardy based off of their training and the equipment that they have. And when it comes to that type of equipment, you can't wait until it breaks down and then decide we need to do something about it. You have to make sure you can maintain that equipment at all times. It's not like your radio or your TV at home, you're just going to be inconvenienced. If you're in the middle of a house fire, if you're in the middle of a storm, if you're in the middle of a robbery or something, or someone's life is in danger, you don't have time to wait to decide the equipment is going to work. You have to have confidence in knowing that it works. Now, the dilemma that we find ourselves in, that this equipment is extremely expensive, and it is very expensive to maintain and to keep up to date with. And obviously, my vote in support is to move forward with it. Again, as of August, the E911 fund will be a negative $153,000 as of 8 months from now. And we know we can't get this thing in place within 8 months from the day that we make a decision. We're looking at 10 to 12, 16 months getting a new system in place. So based off of that and based off of my background and knowledge of it, we do have to. It's not a matter of do we want to. We have to do something about it. It's not a if and but. We have to do something to address the radio communication system.
Supervisor Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. President, when I say we need to pay it off, I'm not saying a lump sum. I'm saying that I won't be paid off, won't get off in most cases. So you get enough. Now, I hear that this system is no good, it's outdated, it's not going to work, but it keeps working. Ms. Willis, how long do we have left to pay the system off?
We will go through, the last payment is August 17th.
So that's 3 more years. Now, again, I've heard everything from, we're going to go out and get people to tell us about a new system, and we're going to find a way to pay for this new system, but we're going to merge the debt that we already have, they keep saying. Now, if you keep merging debt, we'll never get out of debt. You've got to pay it off. Now, if this system is that bad, then we need to bring some people here to tell us. I'm not talking about people who can make some money. I bet you go get any company, whether it's Motorola or whoever else. I'm not an expert at this. But if they're going to make millions of dollars, I'm going to come here and tell you it's going to fall down today too. That's their business. That's how they make money. But you got to stay like the old people told us. Pay your debt off. Then look at something else. And that's what I hope for. Thank you, Mr. President. Finally, before the young man left, could we get a copy of this information you gave us? Do you have copies for us?
I just passed.
No, I'm not talking about material. He made some suggestions and everything else, and I think it's important that we have copies of it.
I can put it on paper for you.
You don't have what did you speak from? Did you have it written down anywhere?
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Supervisor Calhoun.
Yes, sir. We have been advised by the experts, even the communications companies themselves, that the communication systems needed prior to this system, but all systems, have a life expectancy of 10 years. Even with the old system, if we were able to purchase a new system, we could take the old parts and recycle those parts because some people still have systems where they need to purchase parts that perhaps the systems are not as old as our systems is, but the experts have informed us that the life expectancy of those systems consists of approximately 10 years. And of course you can get by another couple of years or so with patching and maintaining the system. But you never know the day when that system could just actually crumble and break down. And I would hate to see this board sit to 2017 to wait to see if such will happen. We need to, again, start acting and planning for the future safety of our communities and our law enforcement and first responders. So I think this board is being very positive by taking the action to at least look at some requests for proposals. Now, I have not seen from the company that is currently providing us with maintenance services, I have yet to see an insurance policy that covers the liability of this company if this company should cause some problems with the system or the system fails because of, let's say, lack of maintenance. I have not seen such a policy. If there is no policy, and I say if there is no liability in policy, I know Hines County has one, but if there is no liability policy, then this further compromise the integrity of the system, the code of standards, and also the statute that says any person entering into a formal contract with the state or any county, city, or political subdivision thereof, or other public authority for the construction, alteration, or repair of any public building or public work, before entering into such a contract, should furnish to such a public body, except as provided in Section 5 of this section, bonds with good and sufficient security. Thank you, Mr. President.
Supervisor McQuaid?
Yes, one last point regarding some of the comments I heard concerning how dilapidated or run down the system is. The radio system we have now is not falling apart. That is not the issue. What they have now is functioning. But for those who have a technology background or computer background, some of the consoles and some of the devices that are being used still use a 4-inch floppy drive square disk. Give you an idea as to how long those systems, you can't even find it anymore. When that system goes down, we're in trouble. You don't have backup parts to it, okay? But to operate it as going right now, that's fine. You can't wait until a system goes down to start planning for the future or planning for additional things that may happen. And so I don't want to leave here thinking that, all the towers are falling down, nobody radio work. They are functioning. They are working correct. But the problem is when they start going down now, the manufacturers do not make the replacement part. They have discontinued the parts. And so you're going to have to put some things in place to address that at this stage.
Supervisor Stokes, then we'll vote.
Mr. President, the majority of the board members were not here when the lawsuit between the county and Motorola and it just seemed like something is wrong. And we just got out of lawsuit with Motorola over this equipment. Now we're going to ask them to give us a proposal. You suing people, y'all in court, and that we say, oh, we want proposals to these. It's just something right with this. Now, y'all can outvote me, that's fine. But I'm going to err on the side of the right every time. You cannot have the kind of situation we just getting out of with Motorola, and they got to be the number one company. And then we saying now we're going to ask request for proposals, and the number one proposal got to come from them. Something wrong with that picture, Mr. President. Thanks, Mr. President.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded to redevelop an RFP for a radio system. All in favor? Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. I will now go to the Honorable Mr. Tony Greer, District 4.
Mr. President, I think we can certainly see how important it is, and the timing is important that we go ahead and hire a new EOC director. We've all had ample time to review the resumes that we've received, do any interviews that we've chosen to do. I've done my due diligence, and I would like to bring forward the name of somebody I would like to nominate for this position. And I make that in the form of a motion that we offer the position of EOC Director to Ricky Moore, who has a substantial amount of credentials and training, certifications, and experience. I think that he would bring a high profile to this department. I think just based on some of the discussions that we've had here today about the radio system, the weather that we're having at the moment, and any potential crises that we might have in the future, need somebody that can be on point for these items. And again, I make in form of a motion that we offer the position of EOC Director to Ricky Moore.
I second the motion. Discussion. Supervisor Calvin.
Yes, sir. I would like to add another nomination, and that is the nomination of Mr. Daniel Walker And it's one thing about this process. We received some very good information from applicants. And matter of fact, there were 3 top applicants. But after reviewing the resumes of each applicant and conducted interviews, I did not conduct one with Mr. Moore. I'm aware of his previous record and experience with Hinds County. But I also looked at the qualifications of Mr. Daniel Walker, and I was very impressed with some of the highlights of his career, which included being an emergency director of Alcorn State University, consultant physician. He has represented Hinds County at NEMA, radiological emergency preparation meetings, helped obtain over $300,000 in funding, so he had to train, hire training, and purchase new equipment. And the list goes on. He's very knowledgeable of the emergency communication radio systems, by being in the military, and he's done a number of volunteer work for various entities. So I add his name to the nomination.
Okay. Supervisor Stokes?
Mr. President, can we do this in executive session so we can really discuss it? All we want to say about different boards.
Okay. Peter, is that fine with this particular issue? That we have 2 names in nomination, and what we'll do is we'll discuss, further discuss this in executive session, and then we'll come out with a recommendation or vote in executive session and release the results in open session. Okay? Is that okay with Supervisor Green? Is that okay with you? Okay, no, just keep the motion, and we have a motion from you and a motion from Supervisor Calhoun, so we'll work it out that particular way. So, let's continue. Supervisor Greer.
Okay, Mr. President, the next item that I have, I had asked the board attorney to do some research on the rotation of the board president position, which is certainly a position of honor. And in order for each of the districts to be able to share in that honor, I would like to make a 4-part motion here. The first part of my motion, the first motion that I have, is that we recognize this new board after the election. We recognize that we are a new board and a new administration. So I make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Question, President.
Question from Supervisor Stokes.
I guess this come up and kind of guide us. Now, when we say we're a new board, the majority is not new.
Supervisor Stokes, I provided a memo to the board last week. This question was originally brought up at the first meeting that Supervisor McWhorter and Supervisor Greer attended in November. At that time, there was a 4-0 vote asking the legal to look into what options, if any, were available with respect to board leadership. We researched that matter extensively. I did provide a memo to the board, and we'll endeavor to say that, in fact, we're probably in somewhat of a gray area. There is no legal case that is directly on point that says whether this is a new board or not a new board. There are some AG opinions with respect to the term of the president and vice president. They create a presumption, and then there are AG opinions which create exceptions to that presumption. And so, in accordance with the research and the memo that was produced, this is one of the options. It could be argued that since there are 2 new supervisors with over 50% of a term remaining, that this is the first meeting in January and indeed an organizational meeting. And I think that's the position that Supervisor Greer is taking. And there's other reason to take another position, Supervisor Stokes, without question.
My first question would be the memo. Can you just kind of expound on the memo? My packet didn't receive it, and I don't get the email. Just tell us what the memo said.
The memo cited the two statutes that are issued. That's the statute for an organizational meeting, which requires the election of the positions of president and vice president. Then there's a second statute at issue that says what those who's to preside over the meeting. And basically, that's the president. The vice president presides if the president's not here. If neither are here, then they're free to constitute a quorum or let someone to preside over that meeting.
Now, that's state law.
Those are state statutes, yes.
Is there any other state statute that says something about a new board?
Only state statute says that in January, following the election, the board is to have an organizational meeting and elect one of its number president and one of its number vice president. That statute doesn't say whether it's following a special election or a general election. It just says the election. Well, obviously, we had an election.
Thank you.
Before I go to Supervisor McQuaid, I just wanted to make a comment as relates to this particular issue. I've talked with Peter about it regarding this particular issue. I think one of the things that we're looking at is rotating it on a 9.5 months basis, and this will give each and every member an opportunity to serve as the chairman of this particular body. I think that is, I think that's fair. I think that if we hold for 4 years, and that means that most of us would have to be here for 30 years in order to serve in this particular capacity. I think that in being fair, I think that everyone will be rotated into this particular chair, and I think it is an honor, and it is something that everyone should have an opportunity to do. So I'm actually in agreement with this because of the fact that I think that everyone should have an opportunity, and everyone should be afforded that particular opportunity. Supervisor McQuaid, then Supervisor Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Attorney, what I wanted to find out, is there any specific state statute or law that is in place that says we cannot do what we're doing?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my position has always been I never want to be president of any organization. I served over 20-some years in the city of Jackson on the city council, president, and never wanted to be president. But we must follow state law. Now, we all been through training, and we all know that they said 4 years. The president's supposed to be up for 4 years. Now, if it takes Hines County, Peter County, if this law is going to change, we just have to change it in court. Now, whether we agree with Mr. Graham being president or not, the issue is we follow state law. And we must always, now, we start deciding that we're not going to follow state law, then we might as well let everybody in jail now because they didn't follow state law. So we need to make up our mind whether we're going to be leaders or we're going to be people going to break the law. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Galvin.
Being a member of the Mississippi State Association of Supervisors, interacting with supervisors from all places, I do know that most boards within the 82 counties of Mississippi rotate the position of their president and vice president, the positions of their president. Don't know of any of them going to jail yet.
Okay. Supervisor Stokes.
Mr. President, again, now, if the other counties jump in the lake, are we going to jump in the lake? We need to follow state law. And I keep saying that over and over again. Now, following state law may not be an issue when you're going to go to jail because you don't follow it. But we all understand what state law means. And if they say it's 4 years, we need to follow what the 4 years say. Now, if you have a problem with the president, you can ask him to resign. But we need to follow state law. Thank you again.
Supervisor McQuaid.
Attorney Peterson, is there a state law or statute that says we cannot deem this a new board?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Okay. Supervisor Stokes.
And I hate to put you in this spot, attorney. Is there a state law that states, and I brought it the last one, I wish I brought it here, that says that the president is supposed to be there for 4 years?
No, sir.
What does it say?
The law says that in January following the election, and the important word there is the. It doesn't say a general election, it doesn't say a special election, it just says the election. That's why we're in the gray area. In January following the election, the board shall organize and elect one of its numbered president and one of its numbered vice president.
For what period of time?
I'm getting there, Supervisor Stokes. That statute does not say that the individual is elected for 4 years. It is silent as to the length of time. There is then a presumption in certain AG opinions that it is indeed a 4-year position, and then there are certain other AG opinions that create exceptions to that. I will say that this board previously had a policy of rotating the individual every year. I think they did that for 20 or 30 years, long before anybody else was serving. The 9.5 month model is currently used by Rankin County as their model, and it was created and passed by their board at their organizational meeting, and their attorney at that time was Mr. Lem Adams, who went on to become president of the Mississippi Bar. And he represented Rankin County Board for a number of years as well in his law firm. So I understand the question you're asking, Supervisor Stokes, and again, there's nothing directly on point that says it's 4 years. If so, I would have put that in the memo. I understand here and tell you.
Well, has there been any conversation between you and Leslie Scott with Supervisor?
I have not talked with Leslie Scott on this issue. No, sir.
Could you please call, because I know when I went to the class, that's one of the things they told us without any question of doubt. It's 4 years.
I understand
and
that.
I asked the same question then. How can you rotate? They said it's 4 years.
I understand that. And again, that's the presumption based on the Attorney General opinions. And Supervisor Stokes, and I said this to the other 4 of you, y'all all know, when we like AG opinions, we wave them around. When we don't, what do we say? It's just AG opinion. Y'all know that. That's how we do. We did it in the city, we do it in the county, we do it all over the state.
Is there any way right that says that yes, you can rotate?
No, sir. It's never been addressed in writing.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, do you want to give us some guidance, Peter, as to which way you think we should go on this particular issue?
No, that's a political question. I don't want to touch that one. but legally, whichever direction the majority of the board wants to go, I will legally ensure that we get there so that there's no exposure to any of the 5 of them. I think there's a motion on the floor to declare this an organizational meeting and a new board. That's what I understood Supervisor Greer's motion to be.
That's correct.
I would suggest that if that's the motion on the floor, it should also include Supervisor Greer any reference to a proposed policy for leadership.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. It's going to be in a second.
Okay, do we need to go with the entire motion, Peter, or just as one particular motion, making it a part of all one motion, because the motion, a policy should accompany the motion?
I think the policy should accompany the motion. I think if there's a motion for a new board, it also includes the proposed policy, and then we ought to, depending on that policy, take the next appropriate steps to elect or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, then let me modify my motion, if you will. The initial part of that was to recognize this as a new board and administration. And this is our organizational meeting. It's the first meeting in January, following the election. The second part of that, the motion, is the adoption of the policy for board rotation. My recommendation is that we elect a president, we elect a vice president who becomes president-elect. The president will serve for a 9.5 month period, and over a 4-year period, that would allow 5 members of the board to serve in this honorary position of president of the Hinds County Board of Supervisors.
Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Supervisor Calhoun.
The only thing that I was just going to mention, with this board, we have 2 remaining years. And, we never know what will happen in 15, 16. So let's go with the 2 remaining.
Yeah, I don't think our action's behind future boards.
Right.
Correct, and thank you for bringing that up, Supervisor Calhoun. That was indeed in the memo as well, that any action taken by this board, as deeming this an organizational meeting, can only bind us until January of 2016, which will be the then next organizational meeting, because it will follow the general election, and there will definitely be an election in an organizational meeting. Thank you, Supervisor Calhoun.
Supervisor Stokes?
President, well, my first question to answer in terms of the 2 years and 6 months. Now, we're going to follow Rankin County. We do 9 and a half months because Rankin County is doing it. Now, come on. When did Hines County become the stepchild to Rankin County? You know, that makes sense to anybody. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes.
All right, Mr. President, the next part of this will be the election of the president to lead us for the next 9.5 months. I put the name of Supervisor Darrell McWhirter out there as my recommendation.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of? Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes. Okay?
Mr. President, my recommendation for the vice president, who then becomes the president-elect after the 9.5 month period is over, would be Supervisor Peggy Galvin.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes. Okay?
Question, Mr. President.
Questions, Mr. President?
Now, this is challenge, Mr. President. I guess I'm asking you, because any vote that we take, and if this is illegal, what's going on, then how would that affect anything that comes before the body?
Well, that's a very good question, Supervisor Stokes. And fortunately, I think this is one of the rare times where your vote carries very little practical weight. The position of president and even that of vice president is largely ceremonial. In other words, the president presides over the board meeting and pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order. And if the president is absent, the vice president does. However, this wouldn't affect the validity of any vote taken. In other words, you still vote as a body to pay claims, issue RFPs, award contracts, etc., etc. And whomever occupies the seat of president, it's the seat that signs those upon a proper vote, not the individual.
Well,
So
that's what
you
I'm
don't
saying.
have to worry about liability for continuing to do your work as a supervisor if this is indeed challenged and set aside.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The president signs all the paperwork.
Correct.
Now, if this is illegal and this president is signing all this paperwork, then is that not illegal?
No, sir, it's not.
That's fine.
The position of president, it's not the individual. And again, the president, the position, can only sign based on a valid notice meeting, valid vote.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Ex-President.
Okay. I'd like to give the new president and vice president a hand for being elected. Thank you. Again, I'd like to say that it is an honor, it has been an honor doing this particular position, and I do think that everyone needs to have an opportunity to sit in this particular chair to find out exactly what's going on and the responsibilities and the duties, and I will do whatever I can to make sure that I assist you in whatever way that you need to. Okay? Supervisor Greer, continue.
That's all.
All right, we'll now go to the Honorable Lieutenant Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to start off first with Atmos Energy, and we have Mr. Leslie here from Atmos Energy. Mr. Leslie, please. Mr. Leslie, I have two concerns. The first concern is that in certain parts of rural Hines County, the citizens out there, they're concerned that they're on this propane for gas. And a lot of the citizens would really rather have, natural gas. Now, I do understand there's a company out of Macomb that provides the gas up toward Terry in that area. what would it take for citizens of rural Hines County to get natural gas and get off propane?
Councilman Stokes, Supervisor Stokes, the way Mississippi determines areas for gas service and propane service, we have certified areas. That would be a case where the people who wanted natural gas service, and there are a lot of areas in the state that do want natural gas service that, like I say, especially in the rural parts of the state, they would need to go to the Public Service Commission and talk about certifying that area for a natural gas provider such as Atmos Energy.
Now, is there a territorial limitation that y'all could not come into rural Hines County? I know you're in Jackson.
Well, the main it's usually a question of economics because it's expensive to put pipeline in the ground. It's and usually when an area is certified to provide natural gas service, then the residents of that community wind up paying the cost of putting that pipe in the ground. And so, in a lot of ways, it becomes a question of economics as to is it cost effective? Is it more expensive for you to have these lines run than it's really worth, as far as whether or not you're going to continue with propane or not? Am I explaining that right? It's like they may want natural gas service, but when they find out the cost associated with bringing those pipes to it, they may prefer to keep what they have. And that's why you look at natural gas companies such as Atmos Energy or CenterPoint Energy. We typically are in more urban areas where you can put a lot of pipe in the ground in a concentrated area, so that it winds up being more cost effective.
Okay. Finally, in Jackson, we've had gas leaks, and the concern from some of the senior citizens was during the holidays, people shooting fireworks with these gas leaks. Now, y'all come out, you mark the street.
Yes, sir.
One of the main issues is that when they call, they're transferred to a call center in Texas, I think in the Panhandle. Do we not have local people?
We have our contact center in Dallas handles those calls because for a couple of reasons. One is because all those calls are recorded and they're time stamped, and there's a complete record of people calling, because gas leaks, when folks call in a gas leak, and we do want folks to call us when they have a gas leak or to call 911. First, let me back up and say, if you do smell gas, leave the area where you smell gas first and then call either Atmos Energy or 911. That's just a safety precaution, because a phone, a cell phone, any kind of electrical device, if there is gas in that area, in a closed area, can cause problems. So, but yes, when they call in, it goes to our dispatch center in Texas, and the technology we have is they can immediately dispatch an Atmos Energy crew to whatever location it is. And so, and when you use the centralized call system versus the older system of just calling into a local office, like I say, there's a record of the call, the call's recorded, and you have a time, date saying that this person, from West Jackson called at this time and said they had a gas leak. And so it's a much more efficient and much better system as far as having an actual record.
Well, during the Christmas holidays, what we experienced was that I'm talking to somebody in Texas, maybe they don't want to be at work because it's around Christmas, but you're not getting the help. We got more help, and I tried our EOC director and from the fire department. The Jackson Fire Department, they got that first, they call somebody to come. Can the citizens have that kind of response? I know the fire department and police are emergency people, but it seems like the citizens feel that they've been treated like second-class citizens.
Well, we certainly don't want that, Mr. Stokes. I will, if you need to get with me afterward, I'll be happy to talk with you about this situation.
That'll be fine.
One of the things, and like I say, another advantage of that contact center is it's manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Christmas, New Year's, any holiday you can think of, there's somebody there.
I'll get what you have to do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Continue,
Thank
please.
you. Yes, sir. Mr. President, we have an item on the agenda.
Thank you, Rob.
About the library. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Supervisor Callen.
I think it's a matter of protocol, professional protocol. We do have a new president elected, and the president should take his position today as the president. And let me just say that we have represented the board, and we appreciate your services.
Thank you very much. Supervisor
Thank you.
Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we want to bring Mr. Ramirez. We have people from the library that's here. And Mr. Ramirez is off today. She has been to this board before. We had a public hearing. Yes, we had a public hearing where we gave people in the library a chance to voice their concerns, and those concerns continue to increase. And I think because of the city of Jackson, we have the chief of staff, Amanda Luma, here with us, and because the library funds come from the city of Jackson, Hines County, I think that the concerns that the library staff bring forward, we need to hear them and try to deal with it as we deal with this budget. Ms. Ramirez, introduce yourself.
Thank you and congratulations, Mr. President. My name is Celeste Ramirez, and for the past 20 years I've worked with the Jackson Hines Library System. I represent a group of concerned patrons and concerned employees about the future of our library, about the practices that are being perpetrated there, and about the spending of certain monies. I want to begin, and I want to be very brief, with what happened to Charlotte Moman. She was told that she had from a period of June 1st to August 1st to apply for the director. They hired someone on June 24th without Charlotte ever being able to apply. I feel that her right to apply for this job was denied her. And when asked, the head of the library board, Harriet Kirkendall, said Charlotte did not apply. That has been her only answer. Well, that is a fact, but it's not the truth, because Charlotte Moman believed she had until August 1st to apply, when they actually hired someone, a white woman from Hancock County, on June 24th. Therefore, I leveled the charge of Jim Crow practices by Harriet Kirkendall against Charlotte Moman. The second item would be the abuse of black employees perpetrated by their white superiors. We wrote a letter to all of you about the way Dee Armstrong was treated by her white superior, how she was demeaned, driven to tears, and then asked to leave, even though she had 5 hours left on her job, by her white supervisor. Also aiding her in this was Burnett Nichols, the human resource manager, who says she stands for everyone, but clearly went downstairs and perpetrated trying to get Dee Armstrong to leave. You all read a letter from Miss Bagwell about the way that Dee Armstrong was treated. You read a letter from me about the way that Charlotte Moman was treated by Burnett Nichols. When I called our director, Patricia Furr, to say that Christy and I wanted to meet with concerns about these incidences, Patricia Furr, the director, told me I could not make a complaint on behalf of someone else. But then she did go to great lengths to defend the white supervisor and say that there were, again, two sides to every story, but she would not hear my side. She only heard about she only defended the white supervisor against Dee Armstrong. I called a well-known attorney, and he told me it was my right to complain if I witness abuse. Which I did, and I was denied the right to talk about it. The next incident I'd like to talk about, and Ms. Calhoun, this is in your area of Bolden Moore. Johnny Mumford is a black diabetic woman. She has only one helper in her library. Sometimes her helper gets there at 4, or sometimes she's caught up at her other job and doesn't get there at all, thereby leaving Johnny Mumford, a diabetic woman, not able to eat or rest or take a break, whereas Sonny Bucara, the white supervisor at Eudora Welty Library, has a minimum of two helpers hired to her. I just don't see how this is fair or in any way right to Johnny Mumford. The next thing I would like to call your attention to is this page here, which talks about library renovations. If you could just take a look at this. She gave... Thank you. This is her proposal she's giving to the library board. She was supposed to give it in December, but it's going to be given now in January. And you can see the amount of money she's spending, $108,000. This is to renovate one floor of Eudora Welty Library. And what concerns me is the next paragraph that says all pricing is the lowest possible price under Mississippi state contract with the companies. So multiple quotes are not necessary. Now, I'm not very smart, but it seems to me that if you're going to spend the public's money, you should have at least more than one quote. And my question is, if the library board votes on this, will they not question why there's not another bid? Here is the last thing, next to the last thing I want to bring up. It's on the second page, and it says, why renovate Eudora Welty? It says, currently most of the clientele that Welty Library attracts are homeless patrons and low-income persons who must come to use the library computers. She goes on to state that she would like these demographic groups to come, as they do not see Welty libraries are attractive or clean. That's what the $108,000 is for. To change the patrons that the library attracts must start with providing attractive, easily cleanable lounge chairs. So, to change the patrons. I don't know about the demographic of every library. I can tell you the demographic of Richard Wright. When 85% of the low-income patrons we have are black and 15% are white. We have people walking to the library to use our computers. We have them come to fill out job applications. These are the people that we are supposed to serve, the low-income people. She would like to attract you, Ms. Calhoun, but my question is, do you own a computer at home? And do you, Mr. President, do you own a Kindle or a book to read by?
Which person?
Aren't you the new president? Do you own a Kindle? Okay. Since you can pull up any information you need, and since you could download a book, is there any reason for you to come and see me at Richard Wright Library?
Not for that purpose.
Okay, not for that purpose. So, the people that need us are the low-income families, primarily 85% black, that have no other option and have no other way to get information for their children. They walk to us. They come to my story hour. They will walk to my story hour so their children can be entertained. So why would Patricia Furr want to change the people that we need to help? Okay. All right. Go ahead, please. The last thing I want to bring up was the abolishment of our training. As you know, as public officials, you walk a fine line between taking care of people that you can't make happy and people that you can, but that you always have to be polite, and you really never are afforded to say no. Previously, we were trained in all of this. It's very difficult to do it 40 hours a week, day after day. So once a year, we were organized to take training sessions on how to serve the public better. Patricia Furtis feels that these are no longer necessary and a waste of time, so they have been abolished. We're very concerned about that, because how can we help the people who need us if we don't have refresher courses? Therefore, once again, I lay a claim of Jim Crow practices against the very people of Hinds County and against the employees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The other gentleman, share that again. Okay.
Paul Luckett. I'm just a concerned citizen. I've been going to the library for 10 years, going to the board meeting, having this board meeting. And I already been before you all about the organization structure. And the time have arrived, just what I predicted was going to happen, it's happened. You know, the library have made a lot of strides, a lot of gains, but due to the fact that they changed the organization structure from executive director to deputy director to assistant director. And just like you have a president, you need a vice president. They changed that in order to just have assistant director. They named about 4 people assistant director just in order to make sure that Ms. Moment would not be a vice or a deputy director. See, all this just way to get back at her, because she made sure that the board allowed her to apply for the job to be executive director. When she applied for the executive director, they went behind closed doors and they said she'll never get the job because she's not a yes person. She's a woman of character. She's a strong person. And I don't know what's wrong with us as people. We can't see when somebody able to lead us to 21st century. We don't want that person. We want a yes person, somebody weak that can't take us where we need to go. And so Ms. Moment have the qualification. She's been to school. She's been doing the work all along. But they will not treat her fair. I'm just sitting here. I'm just a citizen. I'm looking at it. I don't have no dog in the fight. I'm just about for doing what's right. Justice to all of us, not just some of us. You know, and this has not been done right. Ms. Calhoun, I've been before you. Mr. Stokes, I've been before you. Mr. Brown, I've been before you. Numbers of time. Citizens, you hear me talk more about the library than anything else, because this is what I see going on. And you all can't see this. You all need to get together with the city. Y'all get together with the legal department. Y'all come together and y'all sit down and work out the right thing. Do the right thing. You know, you all elected, and I know you appoint these boards to supervise the library and over the director, but they don't know what they're doing. You know, they don't know what they're doing. So you all need to make sure that y'all get together and y'all give leadership so this won't happen, because this is not right for someone to go behind closed doors to just ask the person out just because they don't do what they want them to do. And it's not right. It's just like Ms. Moment was supposed to be considered for the executive director. Blatantly, they went out and hired someone, but not even give her opportunity to apply. Now, I'm sitting the board for 10 years, and they know where I'm there. They even told me I know where I'm there. But yet still they go and do something underhand, and they said they don't know what happened. Come on, be for real. I've been to school and I know my lesson well. And I'm nobody to be taught with, because I know exactly what's going on. And you all know what's going on. But you sit here, you don't do anything about it. Or so you just give it to the person that's doing it. Ms. Kirkendall, who's the president, and I thought Ms. Moment talked highly of her, talking about what she was a librarian, she was a director. But she turned around and did not even allow her to apply, because she did not feel, for whatever reason, that she could have the job. And I know she was doing the job all along. And then to turn around now, they're saying, well, we're going to make sure that we not having the staff to have continuing education. You all finna get sued. I'm telling you right now, you write it down, because when you stop continuing education, When people come in and don't know how to treat people, somebody gonna have a meltdown, and they go, it's all she wrote.
Okay. All right, Mr. Stokes.
Mr. President, you know, this situation with the library is an example of what they call the new Mississippi. Because you got black people coming together about an injustice. So many times if something happened and somebody probably would see it, they just wouldn't say anything because they're called Negro lovers or another word for them. But with Ramirez and others, they talk about this injustice that's taking place at the libraries. When you're talking about you want to get rid of the homeless and poor people from using the libraries, those are the ones without computers. When you think about the direction to spend $100,000 is to put some libraries in the city neighborhood. That's how the test scores can go up. These kids don't have computers in our neighborhood. In the poor neighborhood you go through, you know these kids don't have computers. And the library shouldn't be that neat. But again, she mentioned it well. She said Jim Crow. Jim Crow has risen his ugly head again. But these new black and white people libraries are going to chop it off. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much, Supervisor. Continue, please.
Mr. President, I passed out an item to members of this body dealing with items we need to vote on. And they should have all of them. We should have all of them. And we're going to bring up the Chief of Staff for the city of Jackson. On the agenda, Mr. President, I have an item to support, a resolution to support 1% local sales tax for the city of Jackson.
Okay. You put in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir. I move that we support
Okay.
the 1% local sales tax for the city of Jackson.
And I'll second it. It's been moved and properly seconded.
And now, bro, you bring up the
Now,
chief of
discussion.
staff. Yes, sir.
Good morning, and give us your name, please.
Good morning, Safia Omari, Chief of Staff for the City of Jackson. I'd like to thank Supervisor Stokes for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf and offering this resolution in support of the 1% sales tax increase. Jackson is in dire need of infrastructure improvement, and that infrastructure improvement is directly connected to our economic development and growth, as well as to the quality of services that we can provide to our citizens with regards to clean water, with regards to drainage, with regards to better streets, and with regards to overall improvement of the city's quality of life. This 1% sales tax is projected to create about $15 million, approximately $15 million a year to use to provide much needed improvements and expansion with regards to our infrastructure needs. And that's why we're coming at this time to the citizens of Jackson to ask them to go ahead and move forward to provide us with the resources we need to make the much needed and very obvious improvements in Jackson's water, drainage, sewer, and street system. We have a $400 million consent decree, which we expect will handle most of the needs associated. The water rate increase will handle most of the needs associated with the sewer improvements that are required under the consent decree. However, if we don't get the 1% sales tax increase, there will be additional increases needed in the future in water and sewer rates. And that's what we're trying to avoid at this point. And we're actually trying to do something for ourselves, to take the lead here in raising the necessary revenues to make the improvements that the city needs.
Dr. O'Mara, before you go any further, we want to thank you, Mayor, for your stand, because this has been an issue that's been before the city. And now we were concerned about the so-called board. And now, since the movement's been there, we have gotten meeting of the mind, so to speak, with the chamber, so that this board, the mayor will have more input with the board and the council members. But without this 1 cent, because currently we're just putting clamps. We're not taking these pipes out the ground. And these clamps is just a Band-Aid on the problem. We're talking about taking these pipes out the ground, replacing these pipes, and we're going to do some streets. And I keep saying to our public works staff that we need to make sure that the county try to meet with the city so the county can do some of these streets. Also, because the county workforce is good quality work, that you can see the different parts of the city as we pay them. But this is the opportunity to do the right thing in the city of Jackson and dealing with water problems and streets.
Yes, it is. And these problems, we've gotten estimates that indicate that these problems are going to cost us at least $1 billion in the future, and they're not going to get better if they don't go away. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see some of the presentations that have been made by the city's engineers, the city's public works department, and Bill Schaefer with regards to the quality of the pipes that where they've had to go in and take out a piece of pipe that was broken. But if you look at it, you could really see that these infrastructure improvements aren't just something we want to do. It's just something that we have to do. The brown water is because of all the corrosion in pipes that are over 100 years old. Our sewer plants we violated EPA standards with the way that sewage is dumped into the Pearl River, which is where the consent decree comes from. If you drive Jackson streets, you know what the damage that is happening to cars. And then with drainage, we have citizens whose yards are being eroded away because the drainage system is in need of overhaul. So it's a problem that's been accumulating over the years. The mayor likes to use the expression that we don't want to kick the can any further down the road. Actually, we can't kick the can any further down the road at this point. And so the 1% sales tax is one part of the solution that the mayor is crafting for this problem.
Thank you so much.
It's been moved and properly second that we support this particular issue. All in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes. Continue.
Mr. President, we have a meeting Tuesday night at 6 o'clock at New Mount Olive Church on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. We're going to try to get the community to come out and rally their support. There was a big hole in the middle of Martin Luther King near Medgar Boulevard.
Yes.
And that was just a prime example. Business is just opening. And they came out and they asked us so they can stop it, but we need to get those pipes out. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Continue, please.
Mr. President, I got to bring why Dr. O'Mara still here. Rick here, Mr. President. This young man is, he's been we have a resolution, and I gave it to the Chancellor Clerk's office to read, but I moved that we had passed a resolution honoring Rick Heater.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. We want to read the resolution. Ken, if you would do it, just read the resolution for us.
Resolution of the Board of Supervisors of Hines County, Mississippi, honoring Mr. Ricky H. Rick Hill. Whereas Mr. Ricky L. H. Hill lived and breathed public service during his 41 years tenure in the offices of the City of Jackson, serving in various capacities, and whereas Mr. Ricky H. Hill's recent retirement is hereby recognized in Hines County, where his capable service to the citizens of Hines County was appreciated as well, and whereas Mr. Hill was born on December 28, 1947 in Calhoun City, Mississippi, and he serves as a deacon and Sunday school superintendent and Finance Committee Chairman at Daniel Memorial Baptist Church. And whereas Mr. Hill initiated the city's participation in the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting administered by the Government of Finance Officers Association with the city, received this award every year since 1982. And whereas Mr. Hill was an integral part of bond issues and city budgets throughout the years, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Hinds County, Mississippi, hereby honors Mr. Ricky H. Rick Hill for his outstanding 41 years of service to the citizens of City of Jackson and Hinds County.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's give give us a word of welcome and good morning.
Good morning. I want to say to Mr. Stokes and the Board of Supervisors, thank you very much for this recognition. I served my entire working career in government with the City of Jackson. I have worked a lot here with the county in my role as finance in the finance arena. I've worked a lot over here at the county and had great relationships. We have to work together. The city and the county just has to work together in getting our job done. We serve in the City of Jackson. We serve dual citizens, both county and city. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor for serving the citizens of Jackson and Hinds County. I've got a passion for that. My motto is the citizen comes first. Whatever we got to do, we need to solve their problem and help them. So thank you very much for this honor, and look forward to seeing down the road in my retirement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll really appreciate it.
Mr. President, I think Dr. Romero.
I would just like to say a few words on behalf of Mayor Luma and the city. Mr. Hill has been very instrumental in our first 6 months going as smoothly as it did within the city. You couldn't find a better employee anywhere. You couldn't find a man with more knowledge anywhere. And we just want to say that we really, if we could have kept him, we would have. But he told us it was time. But we just want him to know how much we really appreciate the kind of public servant that he has shown himself to be in his employment with the City of Jackson. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hill, on behalf of the entire county and the City of Jackson, we'd like to present you with this award. You are the only person besides my pastor that I have met has the best brain and mouth that I have ever met. His office is messy, but if you go over there and look for something, he said it's right there. He just knows. He has never let us down, and Ms. Fox, I know for 15 years me and Ms. Stokes have worked you down. So on behalf of the entire City of Jackson and the county, we'd like to say thank you, and please enjoy yourself. And by the way, you're too young to be retired, but we're going to adhere to your word.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Continue,
Thank
please.
you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the last time we're going to need leaders to help us with this item. We got the state of Mississippi to donate some property to the county. And it's off of Johnny White Lane. And this property runs off Power Road Drive. Because of crack cocaine and the drug problem that was in the city, Johnny White Lane is 100% empty, overgrown, and the state of Mississippi saw that we could do something positive. Power Road Drive is named after Mr. Power Middle School, historic people, and it's 80% empty. We had a church, Wings of Faith, who had an opportunity to build a church, and we encouraged them to build it on Johnny White Lane in an effort to bring back that community. We think if we put a church in there first, then the growth will start and come. So we want to make sure that with this property, we donate to Wings of Faith Church, that there'll be a reverter clause, that if it's not built in 2 years or 3 years, it'll come back to the county. But this was state property that they saw a vision, and we thank them for it. So I so move, Mr. President, that we donate the church, the county properties, the Wings of Faith Church, located on James White Line.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. Discussion, Supervisor Greer.
Peter, is this something that we can do?
Yes, sir. Mississippi Code annotated section 19-7-3, subsection 3, talks about when a board of supervisors determines that a piece of property is surplus property, it can sell, lease, or otherwise convey. Otherwise, it can donate under certain circumstances. A church is one of those limited circumstances. It has to be a social organization, church, etc. So the fact that this was, in fact, off the tax rolls, as I understand it, went to the state. It was struck off to the state. Then it was donated from the state back to the county, not placed on the tax rolls. It won't have a negative financial impact on the county. And it is indeed legal. As long as you declare the surplus property first, you then can donate it. Supervisor Stokes is correct on the reverting clause. That was a lesson that he and I learned across the street at the city. I think it is important to put the reverted clause in there so that if the purpose is not as intended, the property does come back without necessity of further action.
Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Peter, so for the record, should the motion include that it should be declared as surplus property?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Carr. Yes, the motion would be, just so we have it on record, Mr. Stokes' motion would be to declare this property as surplus and then have the county donate it to the Wings of Faith with the appropriate conveyance and language in the conveyance for a reverter clause.
Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Mr. President, my next issue is similar to that. The Secretary of State helped us get some property in front of Linear High School that was abandoned, overgrown, and our Public Works Department came and with our park money, we were able to build a walking trail to take something ugly and deploy in front of the school and make something beautiful and good. So what I want to do, and thank Mr. Freeland for building a nice walking trail, is that we name this walking trail for Mr. L.B. Butler, who was the former principal at Linear High School, and I so move.
And I second. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay, continue, please.
Mr. President, the next resolution is supporting Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. We won't meet again before the national holiday and all the activities. I will give all members a copy of the schedule that Hinds County participating in, and you are formally invited to participate in the parade and the awards dinner. I want to make sure we formally invite you. We're trying to get you a letter in there, but we don't want you to think that you're not formally invited. We have bands, again, coming from all over the United States. We have Mississippi Valley coming for the first time in the history of the parade and awards dinner. They're going to honor the Mayor of the City of Jackson, Mayor of the Woman as the Man of the Year, and the Woman of the Year, young, I have to try to think of it. She works with 97.7 on the radio station. No, she's at the young people say, Cherie. Yeah, Tamara Cherie. Young people know it. And so, again, everything is absolutely free. And we just hope that you will come. Tamara Cherie. Thank you, Mr. President. I so move.
It's been moved, and I'll second it. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Mr. President, the towers issue, we had a gentleman that was coming, and the weather stopped him from St. Louis. He was going to deal with the issue of the towers in terms of a program that they have where we might can generate some money because of the towers. I think they would. Hattiesburg is using the program, and I don't want to say exactly how it will work. I would hold this item to the next meeting. They can explain how we can possibly use our power to generate some money. So I hold item number one. And the last item, Mr. President, is the residency requirement. And I asked the county administrator, and she stated that we have a residency requirement for the employees work for the board of supervisors. For elected officials, there's no residency requirement. And I just want to read these numbers. The national rate, the unemployment rate, is 7%. The Mississippi rate is 8.3%. In Hinds County, 7.6%. So we're slowly about to have a higher rate than the state of Mississippi. We're already over the national rate. We must generate jobs. And we must also make sure that if a person wants to work for Hinds County, they need to live in Hinds County. If a person wants to work for the state of Mississippi, they should live in Mississippi. If a person wants to work for the city of Jackson, they should live in Mississippi. And the only way we're going to be able to reduce the unemployment rate in this county is make sure that people who have these kind of jobs live in this county. So again, whether it's state law that creates this avenue where elected officials can hire anyone they want, sometimes you call that unfunded mandate, because if state law is dictating this and they mandating this, they're not funding these positions. So we might need to look, Mr. Simon, at the possibility of going to court and let's find out if you mandate this or not. But we need to fight to make sure that people in Hinds County live in Hinds County and work for Hinds County. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Stokes. And we'll now go to Mr. Carmen Davis.
Thank you, sir. First item under County Administrator pertains to unclaimed bodies. There are 3 unclaimed bodies for your consideration.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you. And connected to that subject matter, I just wanted to mention to Supervisor Stokes and board members of the issue regarding cemeteries and unclaimed bodies and how they're buried. We hope to have a report or a preliminary report to you next meeting.
Could I ask you this, Ms. Davis? Some of these cemeteries in such awful condition. No fence on some of them. Some of them had the brick. We call it when they bury people in the brick. Repairs? And the bricks are, because of weather, they're washing away. And especially with West Jackson, there's some concern about disposing of bodies. You know, and look like if we're over the cemetery like the lady from Jackson State came and stated, look like we'll be fence.
Right, and that's what we're looking into. We did find and verify that statute saying that the Board of Supervisors do have the discretion, or does have the discretion to maintain and manage cemeteries that are over 100 years. So there is type of cemeteries and how long they've been in existence. So we're working on that, and so we're going to bring more information to the next meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you.
The next item on the agenda, we do not have any items under personnel today. So that brings us to Mr. Blake Wallace, Executive Director of the Hinds County Economic Development Authority.
Good morning. Happy New Year, everyone. I just have one item on the agenda today, and it's a reimbursement for $305 to Wagner INS for site planning services at Sunny Dome Industrial Park.
So much.
It is 305.
305, that's correct.
The original paperwork had 305.
Yeah, it had a period where it wasn't supposed to be.
Too many zeros, too.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Who made the second? I'm sorry.
Okay. Ms. Davis, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Next, let's see, we do not have any items under human capital development or purchasing, so which brings us to our budget and finance coordinator, Ms. Woods, with amendments.
Okay.
Good morning, President Graham and members of the board. Today, I request the approval of amendments for January 6th. These amendments represent departmental requests to transfer funds based on the explanations provided with each amendment in compliance with GASB 34. And amendments for the second quarter allocation for the tax collector, tax assessor, and sheriff's department. as well as any balances from the remaining first quarter. Additionally, there are 3 amendments that will affect the general fund unappropriated surplus. These amendments total $32,787.43. These amendments were approved at the December 16th Board of Supervisors meeting, and they are as follows. The juvenile detention centers, basketball court restoration, $22,000. Chancery Court, the staff attorney salary increase for $9,250. And under the circuit court, the jail assessment related to the grand jury was $1,537.43.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of? Question from Supervisor Stokes.
Ms. Woods, these changes in the budget, and we getting this money from the fund balance, basically?
Yes, sir.
What would that leave the fund balance?
It leaves us at this time $2,348,288.
And out that $2 million plus, is that money somewhat allocated?
Yes, sir. We basically have it allocated to the various expenses and anticipated expenses of the jail.